Tonight's star defender Morgan Riley gets a 5-game suspension after a controversial hit in the Leafs' last game.
You don't take a slap shot with 3 seconds left on the net. But no, Morgan deserves it.
Are you taking Morgan Riley for that?
The suspension divides fans among the NHL's longest penalties this season. Why hockey analysts anticipated it could have been even worse.
We're getting rid of that totally.
Plus, a busy day for Premier Ford, scrapping license plate renewals and taking steps against a carbon tax for the long term.
And it was only last week that the federal government announced funding.
And the mayor backpedals on the eve of her first budget. Why Olivia Chow now says Toronto police will get the $20 million increase it's been asking for. Good evening, I'm Chris Glover, starting with the Leafs in action tonight. The team beating St. Louis 4-1, but the win is being overshadowed by a notable absence. Star defender Morgan Riley was dealt a 5-game suspension just before puck drop over a hit during a heated moment in the squad's last game that has had the hockey world buzzing ever since. Lane Harrison is live tonight for us outside Scotiabank Arena. And Lane, how were fans reacting to this disciplinary action tonight?
Chris, a lot of Leafs fans were obviously disappointed to be without their star defender for so many games. And even some St. Louis Blues fans thought the suspension went too far, despite the fact that the way this process played out had some analysts thinking things could be worse for Riley.
Finishing touches on an Ottawa win and series win, and Morgan Riley takes exception to that.
The hit heard around the hockey world. Morgan Riley came after Ridley Gregg when the Sens player took a last-second slap shot on a breakaway during Saturday's game. At the time, he was dealt a major penalty for cross-checking and handed a game misconduct.
You don't take a slap shot with 3 seconds left on the net. But no, Morgan deserves it.
Late Tuesday, the NHL's Department of Player Safety served him a 5-game suspension.
Are you taking Morgan Riley for that?
You don't think it's right?
I don't think it's right. I think that there's a unwritten rule in the game, and that guy broke it, so he got what he got.
I think that's a bit too much.
Yeah, why?
Because he's a good guy.
While some fans are disappointed, things could have been worse for Riley, especially since he was called for an in-person hearing, according to this hockey analyst.
When you get the dreaded in-person hearing, it could be 6, it could be 7, it could be 10. It could be more than that.
But Riley's suspension is 1 game short of the longest doled out by the league so far this season. Earlier in the week, fellow Leaf superstar Austin Matthews came to Riley's defense.
I think it definitely deserved a reaction. Obviously, Morgan's not a malicious player and somebody that's dirty by any means.
Riley takes exception to that.
Some fans think what Riley did harkens back to the days of a more physical league.
Like, it's the way it is with the new NHL now. It's something that would have just probably been a 2-minute minor 10 years ago.
I want more bench clearing brawls. It's good for the game, taking away the hits. Really, it's kind of getting away from the game.
But the league safety office says Riley's suspension was justified because the hit came so late in the game, saying it was solely an act of retribution. Even still, some of the fans I spoke to tonight don't think the suspension will be enough to stop other players from doing something similar. Chris?
All right, Lane Harrison reporting live for us tonight outside Scotiabank Arena. Taking you next to Queen's Park, where Premier Doug Ford is getting rid of license plate renewals. His government says right now more than 1 million people are driving with expired plates, but soon they'll renew automatically. And that wasn't the only announcement from the Premier today. Queen's Park reporter Lorenda Redekop has more.
Premier Doug Ford at a gas station in Mississauga made an unexpected announcement during reporter questions. While the province did away with license plate stickers, you're still supposed to renew your plate online at no charge, but many people don't. The province says as of last month, more than 1 million drivers had plates that were expired. As for his thoughts, the Premier instead announced a change.
We're getting rid of that totally. Registering your vehicle, we did the first step, getting rid of the sticker. Now we're getting rid of the re-registration. It'll be automatically re-registered, so people won't have to worry about that.
We found someone who at one point had been one of the accidental lawbreakers.
Because I had no idea that I had to renew it, because I thought since the charge was gone, the sticker automatically renewed and I was good to go.
The Transportation Minister's office says the automatic renewals will be for anyone who doesn't have outstanding Highway Traffic Act charges. The Premier's planned announcement was on adding anti-carbon tax legislation.
If passed, this new legislation will require future provincial governments to hold a referendum before imposing a carbon pricing scheme.
Right now, it's a tax at the federal level. Ford's long hatred of it is no secret, at one point requiring gas stations to post stickers against them, later ruled unconstitutional for forcing businesses to display a political message. Ford quickly turned his announcement into an attack on Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie.
She's the queen of carbon tax. Even worse, she raised property taxes every year she was mayor. Bonnie has never seen a tax she wouldn't like to hike.
In a release, Crombie fired back, calling him Desperate Doug, saying he's trying to distract people from his failures, flip-flops, and scandals. The Green Party leader also responded, saying the PCs are playing political games while housing and healthcare worsen. This could all mean a fiery start to the House being back in session next Tuesday. That's the same day the Ford government will release this new legislation. The automatic license plate renewals and the carbon tax referendum will both be in the same bill. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
The Ford government is once again being taken to court, this time over a decision to grant a decades-long license to Southbridge Care Homes. Southbridge plans to build a new residence on the site of Orchard Villa in Pickering, and that is where dozens of residents died in COVID's first wave and where the Canadian military found what it called horrific conditions. Dale Manuktuk has the story.
I'm at a loss for words as to how this home can be granted a license to go ahead with the new build.
Kathy Parks and the Ontario Health Coalition are taking the province to court. Parks' father, Paul, was one of more than 70 residents at Orchard Villa who died during the COVID-19 pandemic.
It's one of the most notorious long-term care homes in the country. 206 of 233 residents contracted COVID-19.
The province has given Southbridge Care Homes, which operates Orchard Villa in Pickering, a new 30-year license to tear down the old home and build a new 320-bed long-term care facility. The lawsuit asked the court several things, including declaring the Ministry of Long-Term Care's decision to approve the Southbridge project unlawful.
In essence, these grounds arise from the provisions of the Long-Term Care Act, which require the ministry to consider the past record of anyone seeking a license to operate a long-term care home.
Orchard Villa's past record isn't good. In 2020, the military uncovered terrible conditions in the home, including improper care of residents, mattresses on the floor, and residents left in soiled diapers, to name a few. It doesn't appear to have gotten much better since. Inspections of Orchard Villa done by the Ministry of Long-Term Care flagged several failures, including failing to minimize harmful behavior between residents, failing to use safe transitioning techniques, failing to provide a table or tray to someone eating, and failing to immediately report an allegation of abuse. Some residents who wouldn't go on camera told CBC Toronto they have no issues with the care they're currently receiving. Despite the history and ongoing non-compliance, a Ministry of Long-Term Care spokesperson tells CBC Toronto the province has put in place robust safety requirements and that all proposed license extensions must undergo a rigorous undertaking process to show they can meet these new high standards, as is the case with the proposed Pickering development. The statement also notes the province's commitment to building more long-term care beds. The case is expected to go before the court in the fall. Dale Manuktuk, CBC News, Pickering.
Back in Toronto, here's a live look for you. -5, feeling more like -12 tonight. And Victor Paulo is here with a first look at the forecast. Victor, quite a chilly evening tonight.
Well, Chris, the return of the cold is here. Right now, it is already getting close to where it's going to be around -7, feeling like -14 when it comes to later on tonight. But when that cold is out the way and we start our Wednesday tomorrow, it's Valentine's Day, and it's going to be a sunny Valentine's Day. But once that Valentine's Day is over, we're expecting some snow on Thursday. Now, your high today, you can see, was 6 degrees. We were the warmest area in the region. It was 6 in the 6. Now, here's what we're looking at when it comes to your daily highs for today. Minus 1.5 is your average high, minus 10.0 is your average low. And a quick look at what we're expecting overnight tonight. Well, there's going to be a chance of mixed precipitation right around the time the show ends, but it's going to eventually clear up. Minus 7 is going to feel like minus 14, and tomorrow morning is going to be a little bit cold, but we're expecting a high of 0 degrees tomorrow, and it's going to be sunny on your Valentine's Day. Over to you, Chris.
All right, well, that's good. Thank you, Victor. Last night's large-scale pro-Palestinian demonstration through the downtown continues to spark controversy. The group was protesting at the Israeli consulate following lethal airstrikes in Rafah. The southern Gaza city is where Palestinians had been told to flee to after intense airstrikes in Gaza's north. The Toronto rally route last night included Mount Sinai Hospital, a place with deep roots in the Jewish community, and witnesses say protesters blocked access to the hospital's entrance. Video circulating on social media appears to show at least one protester scaling the hospital during the protest. In response, Premier Ford says the demonstrators violated the criminal code since it's illegal to intimidate healthcare workers or to prevent people from accessing healthcare.
But even without the law, you have to have an ounce of decency not to do this. I don't care what you're protesting. That doesn't matter. You want to protest, go to City Hall, come down to Queen's Park, jump up and down, do whatever you want. But don't prohibit people going into a hospital when they're in there saving people's lives.
Meantime, Prime Minister Trudeau called the demonstration reprehensible, saying hospitals are places for treatment and care, not protests and intimidation. And the police confirmed the service is investigating several incidents that occurred in front of Mount Sinai Hospital and along the demonstration route. Toronto police say it'll be beefing up security along Hospital Row to ensure that essential hospital services and emergency routes remain accessible. And tonight, we're also hearing from the group Toronto for Palestine, involved in the demonstration. A statement from them tonight criticizes political leaders for calling a peaceful protest, which happens to pass by a Jewish-named hospital, anti-Semitic, without a second thought. The group went on to say it just happens to be along our regular rally route, which we pass by on a usual basis as we head to rally in front of the U.S. consulate. Tomorrow will be a big day at City Hall. Mayor Chow's first budget is being debated, and already we're expecting a big win for the police. After weeks of telling the police chief his request of a $20 million budget increase was denied, the mayor is conceding that fact. Our City Hall reporter Sean Jeffords explains what led the mayor to change her mind.
It's quite an about-face for the mayor, who really had been saying since the launch of her budget earlier this month that the police were getting an increase, that it was a substantial increase, and that there were millions upon millions available in reserves outside of that budget that would help the police. So to then today have the mayor say that she will be backing amendments to her budget tomorrow that will top up the police increase from that $7.4 million recommended by city staff to the full $20 million that they had been asking for. It's quite a change. So I asked her about that and what she thought people would think of this change, and here's what she had to say.
The original proposal was from the city staff and the budget chief, and I've been looking for funding support from the federal and the provincial government. And it was only last week that the federal government announced funding for auto theft, for example, because we have a huge problem in our hands, right?
So, Chris, the mayor is effectively saying that because of provincial and federal intervention, there will be a pocket of funding, a reserve, in effect, that will make up the difference here, and that the city won't have to actually come up with this money itself. So that intervention has prevented the reduction or that cut, as Chief Demke would.
Welcome back. A community center in downtown Toronto spent today welcoming queer refugee claimants from all over the world. The 519 provides services to all members of the community, but today the center had its staff focus solely on the needs of newcomers. It comes at a time when the GTA is seeing an influx of refugee applicants that government agencies say they've struggled to keep up with. Tyler Cheese reports.
I too came to Canada as a claimant 14 years ago, and this was the first place I volunteered, the first place I worked, the place that I felt most welcomed. So this is important to me because I know this journey personally.
The 519 expects to have seen about 1,000 refugee claimants from the 2S LGBTQ+ community throughout the day. They're offering hot meals and bags full of groceries, as well as setting people up with partners that can help with things like finding housing and employment.
We are the largest provider of supportive housing to people living with HIV in the Greater Toronto Area. We provide housing to over 350 folks in the city, as well as supportive services, housing help, eviction prevention, intakes, just generally linkage to care.
In recent months, hundreds of thousands of refugee claimants have arrived in the GTA. In January alone, the 519 served around 8,000 of those, and they say there are more to come.
I would love to work myself out of a job to get people so connected and so involved in community that we don't have to do this, but unfortunately that's what's going to happen. And I see no slow in sight. This is going to continue for a while.
2S LGBTQ+ refugees face a lot of the same issues as any other newcomers to the country, but they also often encounter additional challenges.
A lot of them actually fear going to official sources or public officials or community agencies for fear of being outed because they don't know what the treatment is on the other side. So first and foremost, it's establishing trust.
For today only, the center has redeployed all of its staff to focus on refugees. But they say the issue is not a one-day fix, and they're calling on the public's help.
Donate to the 519, certainly we'd appreciate that, but also talk to your public officials, talk to your government leaders, and make sure that there are resources dedicated to helping the people that are coming through.
Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
Turning next to a first-of-its-kind report into homelessness in Canada. The report focuses in on the growing number of tent encampments across the country. While it found the current system is broken, there were several calls to action put forward. Megan Fitzpatrick has that story.
The federal housing advocate Marie-Josée Houle released a final report today. She calls it a deep dive into the issue of homeless encampments. She undertook this review about a year ago, and it takes a look at why the number of encampments has been growing in recent years, especially since the pandemic. She says in her report that it's not just big cities like here in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal that are seeing a growing number of encampments, but in smaller municipalities as well and in rural areas. When she took a look at some of the root causes for the encampments, she's talking about a lack of affordable, accessible housing. She also says discrimination plays a role here.
And when we're talking about the root causes of encampments, we're talking about racism, colonialism, poverty, the breakdown of our welfare system, the breakdown of our health systems, the breakdown of our mental health systems, the breakdown of our housing and homelessness systems.
She also said in terms of emergency shelters that some municipalities offer, well, there's often challenges associated with those. We know here in Toronto, for example, they're often full, as well as the conditions of those emergency shelters. They just don't work for some people. She also said one of the problems and one of the barriers to solving this problem of homelessness is a lack of coordination among various levels of government and also a lack of political will. She says here some stigma plays into that lack of political will. Now, Houle says her report is an urgent call to action for all levels of government in Canada, and that Canada does have the capacity to tackle this issue. Megan Fitzpatrick, CBC News, Toronto.
A quick heads up for tomorrow. An association that represents drivers for ride-sharing apps like Uber and Lyft are set to go on strike as part of a fight for better pay. Rideshare drivers in 44 cities in the U.S. and 3 here in Canada, including Toronto, are protesting low wages and calling on the government to take action against what they're calling poverty pay. To weather now, and after a stretch of warmer than normal temperatures, the chill is certainly back in the air tonight. Victor Paulo is here with the long-range forecast.
Taking a look at the map of North America here, we can see that it is getting cold, not only across the entire country, but right here where we're located in the southeast of Ontario. And as we're getting later on towards the end of the week, well, you're going to eventually see the temperatures will be back to regular scheduled winter. I know a lot of us have been asking for it, especially since last Friday, but it's crazy to see in 1 week from one Friday to another, we can go from really above seasonal record setting to right back to what we should be expecting. Now, here's what we're looking at when it comes to your overnight temperatures. It's going to be -7 and it will be feeling like -14. We were one of the warmest areas in the region today, but we're also looking like one of the coldest in the region. A little bit of balance from warm to cold, but when it comes to your tomorrow, here's what we're going to be expecting. Now we're going to be having a nice, beautiful, clear Valentine's Day. As you can see, by the time we start our day, the precipitation should be all said and done. But if you see what's coming over this way towards where we're located off the Great Lakes, that it's going to be happening Thursday, well, that is that rain and all of this, correction, that is the snow. And all of this, you see the blue that's working its way in towards the GTA is the snow we're expecting, 5 to 10 centimeters. And you can see by the time you start your day, the snow is going to be knocking on your door, welcoming you with regular scheduled winter as we know it. Now, here's what it looks like when it comes to your overnight and your 3 and 5 day forecast. We're expecting overnight to be -7, feeling like -14. Tomorrow is going to be a beautiful day where it's going to be 0 degrees, but your 5-day forecast shows us that we're not only going to be expecting some snow on Thursday, 5 to 10 centimeters, but there's going to be some snow coming on Friday as well, and a bit of sun on Saturday. But when we start our week next week, there's a chance there'll be more snow coming our way. Now, we'll talk to you tomorrow on Valentine's Day, but until then, Toronto, have yourselves a lovely night.
All right, Victor, we'll see you tomorrow. A major milestone is happening at the Portlands this week. Water is now flowing through the new Don River Valley.
Under the yellow bridge that some people may have had a chance to come and visit at Polson Street and Cherry Street is the new mouth of the Don River where it meets the lake, meets Lake Ontario in the Inner Harbor right downtown here. As I said, we've been slowly filling that new river channel with water. It's a very, very significant moment after about 5 or 6 years of construction.
The team behind the massive redevelopment project began filling the 1.3-kilometer extension recently, and it's meant to protect the Portlands from flooding and make the area an extension of the downtown, which will eventually include a community of housing. Time for a quick break. We'll be right back. Finally, tonight, Metrolinx is celebrating Black History Month with a pop-up market at Union Station. Cool vibes. 6 local Black-owned small businesses are there, selling everything from books to skincare. And it's located at the Upstairs Lounge above the Up Express platform. It runs all week from 11 to 7. And that's it for us tonight. I'll be back with you tomorrow night at 11, and we'll see you then.